Marie, and welcome to the June Te Awamutu Community Board meeting. We've got a few apologies this evening from board member Taylor and Councillor O'Regan. So can I please have someone to move those apologies? Lou, a seconder. Kane, all in favour? Think about that. Against? Carried. Okay. Have we got any disclosure of members' interests in regard to any of our items tonight? No, all good. And nothing for late items? Cool. And so can we just confirm then that the order of the meeting is confirmed as in the agenda? Have someone to move that? Richard, second. Kane, in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, and we haven't got anyone for the public forum, so we will move on to the confirmation of minutes, which is on pages 7 to 11 of our agenda. So can we please move that the Te Awamutu Community Board confirms the minutes of the meeting held the 10th of May 2022 is circulated with the agenda as a true and correct record of proceedings. Lou, Richard, all in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, so we move to pages 12 and 17, the urban mobility and route priority feedback. And we've got Eric Vanderwell, the program engineer, here to talk to us about that. So we will take the information as read. But Eric, if you could, I know I've already sent you in a few questions in regard to some background as to why those routes were chosen. Exactly, you know, and some of that, some questions there, and if anyone else has got some questions, but if you'd like to just speak to what you provided us, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I've taken the report as read, and thanks for the opportunity to discuss this with the board and get some feedback. So the questions that were raised, the first one, what's the background? What is the background to why the routes were selected? So the main background to the detail was the business case that we've developed for this program of works. And that business case built on various strategies and documents historically of where the routes go in mainly in Te Awamutu. Is there any more comments on that part?
Not for me. Richard?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Looking at the Te Awamutu cycle network on page 5, yeah, page 5, it's got the routes marked in green. How are they highlighted? What are they going to be? Are they going to be separate lanes? Are they going to be?
So they'll be, so all of them will be separated from traffic, and then some will be shared paths and some will be dedicated cycle lanes.
Okay. Yeah, I have a big question around the Mahui Street section. What's going to happen there? Are you going to take out car parks? What cycle lane?
We would have to, yes. Some car parks.
That is the busiest section of road in town, with 3 of probably fairly big businesses and a service station all in one section of the road. And yeah, why can't they go down past the event centre and across the road and then across State Highway 3 by the bend and then connect that way? Because trying to get across George Street in a car is hard enough, and
oh, so you're saying
it's going to create huge issues. If you're
saying Gorst Ave along the river.
Is it called Gorst Ave? It is Gorst Ave. Yeah.
I think one of the key things is we need to try and make these routes direct as possibly we can. So the most direct route would actually be Alexandra Street, but that's kind of impossible with the traffic and the parking. So I guess the next best for the strategy or this program is Mahui Street, and It's not taking out all the parking. It would probably be close to half though, depending on exactly where we land. But yeah.
Yeah, I can't see how cycling can cyclists can justify losing about 10 car parks, for especially in that busy section of town. When I was actually at the intersection of Mutu and Alexandra Street this afternoon when the kids were out from school, and I was there for quite some time, and quite a bit of traffic. And just at school time, very, very busy with kids walking, kids with cars, and the buses and so forth. And I saw one bike the whole time. So how many people are actually on bikes at the moment that is going to justify losing those car parks?
So at the moment, the numbers are really low. We did a survey 2 years ago, and the numbers were, in terms of the total traffic in Te Awamutu, it was around 1 or 2%. But I guess it's our challenge to improve that. So I guess one of the principles in the business case is that we need to build infrastructure to make it enjoyable and safe for people to bike. So it's a lot of chicken and egg, that if we don't build it, we'll never get the numbers. If we do build it, we believe we do.
Sorry. Sorry about that. So haven't we already got a cycle lane going down past the rugby club, and you can go underneath? There's already a path there.
To Kihikihi?
No, sorry. Yeah. So you're at the Tammany Rugby Club, and then there's, if you go across the road from there, there's already a path leading to that place, right? Then you go across the road, so Highway 3, and you've already got a path there. So why do we need to put more paths on?
That, you mean the path along the riverbank?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's there now, yeah. Yeah, that's, it's not, well, because the path isn't the direct line, and it's not really an attractive path to the typical destination being the CBD. So so that's Pioneer Walk. So you would get to some points like the netball courts and the Wānanga and destinations like that, but it doesn't really help you get to other destinations.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is that if you keep going down Pioneer, you could do a link straight down that road to the college, and then you could go left and then back onto Alexandra main road out to Prongia there, right? I'm kind of with Richard. I think that seems to be a fair bit of disruption when it's actually not that far from that point to actually, you could get off your bike and push your bike up to the main road, is what I would have thought. I probably need to understand exactly what Richard's sort of intimating, what are we going to be doing in there. So if we're taking out parks, and what are we putting in?
I guess what you've got to see is the cyclists will be customers as well. So at the moment, Te Awamutu is completely laid out for customers to get to town by car. And I guess this starts a transition to that the customers can bike and also more readily walk to the destination. So it's right that Mahawe Street would lose some roadside parking, but then the customer then has, as we develop our scheme, the customer can then access town by bike.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've done a lot of cycling. You can essentially cycle on the road to get there, is what I'd be saying. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm interested to see a bit more about it, really. So yeah.
I could say something, Madam Chair. So at this stage, it's a matter of looking at the two areas, either the Kihikihi option or the Te Awamutu and middle school sort of option, and those other details around, the detailed design of, which side of the road and its exact form and how much impact on parking, all of those things would be decided in a later stage of developing the concepts, doing some more consultation, with the community board and the Chamber of Commerce and other people like that before anything is built, and that's still quite some time away. So the key really right at the moment is just to look at, well, where is the best place to start, and that other detail will be filled in as we go.
I agree totally with what Ron was saying just then, but we are limited quite badly at the moment with Wakakatahi not funding us at the moment. So we are actually limited in what we have as options. So the original concept was the second one that we were looking at, or option B, as he's got it down here, I think, isn't it? Yeah, option A and option B was the one that looking at. But of course, we've got to realise that we look at Hazelnut, and that is a very narrow street, and there would have to be some compromise with footpaths and parking to be able to put a cycleway down there to the intermediate, and also linking up with the Kihikihi school as well, and doing the Kihikihi domain. That was our priority.
Okay, so just to clarify, my understanding was we could ask some questions about the whole urban mobility though at the moment, is that right? So, and I do know that this was something we raised in one of our submissions that we did. We did bring up in the long-term plan that we felt that Mahui Street needed to be very carefully considered because it was going to have quite a substantial impact. And I know that Red Kitchen is very popular with our rural community to stop down there because often there is a little bit of extra room for a trailer and things, and I've seen them park there, or they can park handily, obviously, over at the event centre if it's not busy. But I suppose for the want of just moving on time-wise, I think that as a community board, we definitely would love the opportunity to come back and be involved in a timely, with plenty of time to input into that. But I know that we have raised that Mahui Street, and I'm with them, with Richard and Kane, that I do have some concerns around that, especially when we could possibly go one block. But I also acknowledge what Eric's saying, in that if we don't start to sort of push some of these things a little bit, no one wants to change, and it's still too easy for us to jump in the car. So it's finding that nice balance. So maybe if we can come back to these two options that we have been asked to consider today, as Brian's pointed out, being the intermediate option or the Kiki school option. I did have a couple of questions for Eric that I'd sent through Kieran earlier, and one of those in regard to the intermediate was about where the crossing might be going to go on State Highway 3. I wasn't quite clear by that picture where you were intending to cross the road. Was my first question. And my second question was what Lou alluded to in regard to what are you going to do about Hazelmere, because driving down there actually tonight, I took special interest, and I thought, well, maybe you could widen the footpath so you don't have the grass verge. But I know you would have probably a lot of very upset people if you took out all the parking along there for people to be able to park outside their houses. And there's one house in particular that would be really upset now because I see the outside has now become their metal collection area on the side of the road. But anyway, Eric, I'll hand that over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So State Highway 3, Albert Park Drive, the crossing point would be somewhere close to the Joy Street intersection. And because we haven't got any predetermined views on that, it could actually be that that intersection is signalised, or there's a mid-block crossing either to the north or south of it.
Okay.
So
can I just ask another quick question there? How are Waka Kotahi going to go with having two crossings within 100 metres of each other?
So this would be a priority crossing. So most likely walking, cycling, traffic lights, most likely. The other crossing point is an informal, more of a refuge. That's outside the car park, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So The Wakatahi, they have to balance modes of traffic. So they see the need for walking and cycling facilities. And as an example, they've supported a design that we're promoting in the Helper Village on the same highway for traffic signals there. That's just for pedestrians. So they're not aware of this specifically in this context. They're aware of it in the funding sense, but not on the actual infrastructure sense. But we're confident that that we can bring them around. The other question regarding Hazelnut Street. So Hazelnut Street is a special case because it's only 15 metres wide instead of 20, and it's a key link to the intermediate school. And the intermediate school is probably one of the key destinations you would consider for a cycling network. So we just had to reallocate road space. So basically it means you would lose roadside parking on one side of the road, and you would probably have to consider instead of having 2 footpaths, maybe have 1 footpath. So there are solutions to it, but I agree they will be pretty transformational.
Okay, thank you. Have any of you got any questions in regard to the Hazelmere George Street?
Sorry, so that's the Hazelmere George Street, that also includes going across that O3, is that right?
Correct.
That includes that, okay.
No questions related to that for Richard? No, okay. And so then the Kihikihi leg, when I was looking at the route that was chosen, I just wondered what the I suppose the rationale was behind going down Rolleston and along Whitmore, as opposed to going along Herbert Street to the domain where you would go in the main entrance and then down Oliver Street to the primary school.
So I guess the main, there's 2 ways of looking at it. One is if your focus is the Kihikihi school as a destination, I think Whitmore Street is more direct for most people to use. But if your focus is of getting Kihikihi residents to Awamutu, then your option of Herbert Street does make sense as well. So it's the other dynamic with Whitmore Street, it does link easier to the CBD. Yeah, I think that there are some merits in Herbert Oliver, but if the focus becomes the schools, then I think we believe that Whitmore Street.
So the other question I had is, have you actually spoken to the schools to ask, like how many kids are likely to ride? Because, just discussing it with some people, anyone that lives on the main side of Rolleston Street, they're not going to bike up to the bike track and then bike back to school. At Kihikihi School, you've got predominantly primary school kids anyway, which numbers wise, have we got any idea of what kind of numbers of kids are going to bike to school to get some sort of idea of how many kids are going to use it?
We haven't spoken to the school. What I would say, well, we have not about that specific numbers, but we have spoken to school regarding the speed reduction along Whitmore Street that they've requested quite a few times. So when you build this route, like for example, Whitmore Street, it's a transformational project. Then you could take the time to get that Kia crossing that the school has and the bus stop, make that safer by reducing speed. And then the intersection at Rolleston Street and Whitmore Street, which is a bit of a crash, I wouldn't call it a black spot, but approaching it. It provides an investment to tidy up those areas.
Okay, no, that's helpful. And
Madam Chair, I
yes.
just make the point. So we must remember this is just not for cyclists. So kids who are on scooters. So yes, eventually the the path would go all the way up to Lion Street, to the middle of town, and having Whitmore Street treated, so every intersection that the path crossed would probably be up on a speed table or something like that, so that kids, you know, from one end to the other of Whitmore Street could walk or cycle or scoot along that path. Likewise, anybody with a disability, wheelchair mobility scooter user, again, they'd have that access along Whitmore Street, which it would be a strong route for the people of Kihikihi to be using on a regular basis for those types of trips, you know, to the shops and things like that. So it does have those other advantages. It's not simply a cycling route.
I was referring it to as that, yeah, appreciate that. It was just that these questions and trying to weigh up which is the better option, you know, like I know kids that cycle to Hazelmere, a lot of kids don't cycle to Hazelmere because their bike's getting it. So that's part of the issue, you know, like they might now be able to get there, but will they get there because of the security of their bikes actually being a completely different issue? Out at Kiki, I was trying to weigh up, are the school kids likely to be going to use it, or would it be better utilised in the short term for families going on a bike ride from Te Awamutu or from Kihikihi to go to the Domain? It was just in trying to make it, you know, finding a good platform to make a decision from. But have any of you gentlemen got any further questions about the Kiki site, or any comments to make, A or B or C, that we actually provide further feedback or we make a decision tonight on A or B?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was also looking at the numbers as well. So it's sort of a shame we don't have any data on that, but I'm probably thinking intermediate kids would probably use it more. So probably what I'm thinking. What's the difference in time in terms of delivery in between the two? So if we go ahead with on one, when would the other one be completed?
So the option B, the Kiki one, is a bit simpler because there's no state highway involved. So that would probably be a difference of 6 months in terms of ability to design, consult, and deliver it. So option B would be quicker, but that's not really problematic in a program sense.
So in terms of if you get that one done, say in 6 months, when would we get the other one done? So that's something
that's kind of, so with our current funding, it's one or the other.
Right.
So whichever we choose or whichever we don't choose, if the council doesn't choose, will be the first cab off the rank likely in the next funding round, the next LTP. And it's more related to Waka funding.
Right, which is in 3 years. 2 years. Okay, yeah. So 2. Right, so it's a 2 year lag.
So I guess I'm just to clarify, so that option B is simpler, so that can be quicker to build. Option B is more complex because of the state highway, but it's still
option A.
Option A. It's still completely feasible.
Right, and the cost difference between the two?
Very similar.
Similar, yep.
Eric, I just thought of something else too. The Rolleston Street, is that taking out car parks as well, or is that the footpath along there wide enough to?
I think at this stage you'd have to assume the worst, that yes. So Rolleston and Whitmore, the parking on one side as a worst case scenario. So with Whitmore Street, we would have to check really carefully the numbers and the users in terms of a shared path, shared walking cycling path, as opposed to a dedicated cycle path and a dedicated footpath. And probably leaning towards a shared path, but that's, I guess we just need to confirm that. There are some problems with shared paths. You got the conflict between kids on BMXs and people walking their dogs sort of thing. So, but the numbers are, they're not going to be high. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
They're coming up on the same side as the path is at the moment. So going into Kiki, it's on the right hand side going in. Is that what that be?
That's to be confirmed.
Be confirmed.
That's to be confirmed. Yeah.
All right, so have we got any preferences then? Richard?
Yeah, I think I would support B at the moment. I was considering A, but I think it'd be a lot more simple. Make a start on something that can be achieved.
Yeah. Lou, you got any?
I'm actually a bit confused. I'm on the governance group, so I do actually have a role in this. But I would say that I do agree with you, Richard. It's easier to obtain and easier to do it. And traffic calming was one of the biggest issues that we had for the Kihikihi school. They wanted something to actually slow the traffic down a little bit. As you say, and having those crossings and having that scenario, I think would be a big positive. I do feel that we'd have a bit more problems with Hazelnut at this point in time. There's quite a lot of other issues, like not only the width of the road, but getting the residents and to comply with everything could be a bit difficult. So yeah, I'll go for option B as an agenda.
And I think I'm quite comfortable with option B too, and the fact that potentially the Kiki option is going to benefit more people. I think the kids that are happy to cycle are doing that anyway to intermediate. I mean, it'll be great. It'll be an improvement, but I think my leaning for the first cab off the block would be Kiki too. So, okay, let's move that then, shall we? So, unless there's anything else.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just to note that we have made some slight changes to the recommendation from what is in the report. So what we're saying is that B, rewording it, if you're happy, that the Te Awamutu Community Board provides feed that its preferred priority option is option A or option B. In this case, it sounds like it's been option B, extending the Kihikihi path to Kihikihi Primary School and the Kihikihi to Main.
Yeah. And
then C, that the Te Awamutu Community Board provides the following further feedback on other aspects of the urban mobility program, to which I was thinking that sourcing alternative routes other than using Mahoe Street could be one of those feedbacks.
Oh, yep. Just trying to think how we deal with that right now. We probably need to have a little bit of, a bit more discussion and kōrero around that, rather than and have a good look at the whole plan once it's. I presume once the actual, because I know Lou's been on the committee that's been working on that urban mobility plan for quite a while. So I'm assuming that once it's kind of all decided, that then we will get an opportunity to comment on that.
That's correct, Madam Chair. So the urban mobility business case is basically complete, and that has been through and has been adopted or endorsed by council for applying for funding and things like that. And that shows that general layout of the town of where cycle routes would go. But of course that's a broad picture, and it describes routes that will have the most benefit for the town, and that they're the most attractive, take people where they want to go, most likely to succeed in assisting to shift people out of their cars and allow them to walk and cycle and scoot and things like that. I guess there's always a risk that, at the beginning, we can have some early ideas about what we think we would like and not like. And then, so I don't think the community board wants to adopt the position, we'd never want to see walking and cycling improvements in Mahoe Street because it might impact parking. You're better to say, actually, we've got some concerns about parking in this area, so we're very interested in the detail in the future and what the options are and how they're explored. Because you can imagine with any program like this, any particular route, there will be somebody in the community who will say, look, there might be an issue with this, or I don't want to lose parking outside my house. But at the end of the day, council's got to look at the big picture for the whole town, the whole transport scene, and parking. Yes, it's important in our CBD area, and that's why council owns a lot of off-street car parks, and people don't mind parking. Well, often the pressures are that you can't get a park right outside the Red Kitchen or the Butcher, so you've got to park somewhere else and walk anyway. But we shouldn't yeah, at an early stage, close out options without seeing the detail and everything. So I
No,
think
that's
that is important.
Yeah. And I was just seeing if we were going to have a chance to comment on that. So I'm just wondering if we are, then we probably don't need to address C right now. Yeah. Okay, so let's move that A, the information contained in the report of Eric Vanderwell, Program Engineer Transportation, be received, and B, the Te Awamutu Community Board provides feedback that its preferred priority option is going to be option B, extending the Kihikihi path to Kihikihi Primary School and the Kihikihi domain. So can I have someone to move that, please? Richard, seconder. Kane, mental block. I wanted to call you Lou, sorry. Yeah, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thanks, Eric, for clarifying those few questions that we had, and yeah, and good luck with that project. Cool, thank you. Okay, so now we move on to our quarterly reports, and first up we've got John Miles, the Manager of Property Projects, and his report is on pages 19 to 27. Welcome, John. Hopefully you can hear us and we can hear you now, but we'll take it that your report is read, but if there's anything that you would like to highlight, we're all ears, or anything to be added to that report that you wanted to add would be awesome. Thank you.
No, just take it as read, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, so has anybody got any questions? Richard has, so here you go.
Yeah, hello, John. I have a question. What is NZMCA Te Awamutu? It's on page 5.
New Zealand Motor Camping
Okay.
Home and Campers Association. So we're looking, they approached us some time ago. We're looking at a potential site on the landfill, the old landfill off Parongia Road, just opposite where T1, T2 Frontier Estate is. So they're in the process of probably putting that application or resource consent application in the next couple of weeks.
Thank you.
Anything else? I had just a quick question about the Kihikihi War Memorial Hall clock. I see it says that it should be operational by the end of May. Did that happen?
My understanding is that the mechanisms or the automated mechanisms in there, the last time I heard, which was I checked last week, and it was out by about 4 hours. So the clock people are on site adjusting that to get it working properly, but it's been mechanised. We did a whole bunch of work there, so we don't have to climb it every couple of days and wind it up. So if it's not on time, it should be pretty close to starting again.
Oh, awesome, thank you. I don't think I had anything else. Did anyone else have anything for John? It might be the quickest lot of questions you've had, John. This was having a quick flick through to make sure there wasn't anything I'd forgotten. Hazelnut Street's all happening in Cambridge.
Yeah, just whilst we're on that, the memorial clock, John, thanks very much for doing that. And I know that was quite an important piece of work that people in the community wanted done. So thank you for putting the energy and time into that.
No problem. I think
John,
Marcus needs to bit on the back for that.
Oh, gotcha. I did have one other quick question that you may or may not know. The Kihikihi Police House in Temple Cottage, is that on the piece of land that's included with the water tower, or is that a separate title?
I think it's all the same portion.
Okay, cool. I just
but I can check that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's all the same parcel.
Okay, thanks.
And then we own the house. Then we own the house behind the Memorial Hall, which is on. Oh, Brad, have you got it?
Yeah, I got it here.
Yeah, so they were saying
It is all on the same title.
okay.
Yeah, okay. No, I was just wondering in light of the recent iwi application for that to be returned under the public, was it under the Public Works Act that it was taken from them?
It'll be under the right of first refusal.
Yeah, so cool, okay. Just was wondering if that was included, but nothing more from me, so you're allowed, you're all done and dusted, John, so thank you. So what we'll do is we'll move John's report and Brian's at the same time. So thanks again, John, for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
We'll now move to pages 28 to 43, which is the Transportation Activity Report, and we've got Brian Hudson, Manager of Transportation, here with us tonight to go through that report. So we'll take it as read, Brian, and but as I said to John, if there's any highlights or anything you'd like to point out, please do, and then no doubt we're bound to have some questions. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Chair. So just a couple of poignant issues for Te Amiri there. So under the rehabs, Punui Road is nearing completion, and I think the contractor was laying the last lot of metal today. Then they'll compact it and they'll be looking to seal it over the next week as soon as they get enough fine weather for things to dry out. Obviously the footbridges work going on in the Memorial Park and off Mutu Street there. They've been driving the piles in, and if you were around town last week, you probably hear the clang clang of the pile driver hitting those steel piles into the ground. The bridge structures themselves have been built in a factory and largely ready to paint and lift into place when the foundations are complete. So we're fingers crossed everything goes smoothly, and by the end of this month they'll be in place. There is streetlight improvement works, that the 16 new lights to go in Pollard Drive. Checked with our contractor this morning. They hope to start erecting the poles and doing the cabling work for that next week. Again, we hope to have that all complete and lit up by the end of this month.
Just to do with street lighting, Brian, I don't know whether it's your area, but the first street light on Alexandra Street, Sloane Street roundabout, has been out for a couple of weeks. Is that your area, or is that a...
It is my area, yes, and it is. I see a dispatch in the system for the contractor to repair that, and I suspect it's been out for a bit longer than a couple of weeks. So there's a couple like that in town that we're going to push the contractor along to get fixed, because, in my view, they should have been fixed before now. So the only reason that something like that might go for a longer period and not be fixed is if there's a cable fault somewhere under the road or something like that, and it's a much bigger job to get a specialist contractor to replace cables and the like. But most of those light outages they can generally fix by replacing a fuse or a bit of equipment. So we'll chase along.
Thank you.
Yeah, Brian, with the Memorial Park, I had a look down there this afternoon, or had a walk around it. It was quite interesting. With the panels, our side of the panels anyway, the RSA side of it, we've already just wanted a flat plate that we could actually create, or do you want us to actually create it? What was the actual plan on that?
Right, I'd have to go back and find the correspondence that's been going on about that. So I know the iwi art ones are cut into the steel panel, but I'm not sure about the RSA ones.
Because as I understand, without over talking, as I understand it, the iwi will have the sides over the river, which we were quite happy with. All we wanted to have was the ability to actually identify each bridge as Army, Air Force, Navy, and lest we forget. Something along that line on each of those bridges, because we believe that once it goes over the river, it is then outside the actual memorial part of the park. It's still part of the park, but it's outside the memorial side of it. Okay.
Yeah. I did see some correspondence, between contractors, and I think Grey Matter, the consultant, who's been dealing with the art side of things for us. So I'm pretty sure that was covered in there.
Okay.
Yeah, Puni Road seems to have taken a long time. Brian, what's the story there?
Yes, yeah. So it was originally programmed for 6 weeks of work. And I think they've probably been working on it for about 8 weeks now. So they found that at the western end, so from Fairview Road back towards the town boundary, that some of the pavement there had been heavily cemented. So instead of them being able to dig it out, it came out in big slabs about this thick, and it was almost like solid concrete, but virtually nothing underneath it. So the methodology was that they were going to dig out the existing metal, take it away, stockpile it, cut out another 200 or 300 millimeters of the soft sort of ash material underneath, bring back the old pavement and put it in the bottom, and then new metal, high quality metal on the top. So they had to pause for a moment, reevaluate the methodology, and then bring in a big hoeing machine that could just grind up that concreted material into fine material. So that whole process took a bit longer, and then the water main sprung a few leaks in places which they had to pause work again and get people in to repair water leaks. Yeah.
So I'm sure you've probably put something in the paper summarising that, probably not in that much detail. I don't know if you have or not, but
no, not in there. No,
that's the sort of thing that would be quite good to know for those residents and people I come in and out of there.
Right.
That's the sort of thing that would be great to be communicated in a succinct way for the town, so they don't get annoyed and frustrated. Yeah. Even to know there was 6 weeks. So spoke to people at the local dairy. They were talking about 4 weeks, so they had the wrong sort of information to start with, or something, right? So yeah, just a thought for the future, maybe.
Yep. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I can certainly say that I hit one of those big holes where that stuff came out going around the corner of Puni Road up into Fairview Road. There was a fairly substantial dip in the road heading up there, so that was probably one of them. Brian, thank you so much for pushing along the Pollard Street lights. Very grateful for that. But speaking of lights going out, there was some time in the last month or so where there were town was just dark, like the lights just weren't working. So what was going on with that?
When that sort of thing happens, it's invariably the control system. So just like the Waipa networks can shed load in that peak hour when everybody gets home from work and switches on the oven and runs a bath and all those, puts their heaters on, they can turn your hot water cylinder off with what's called a ripple relay control. Mm-hmm. And so all the street lights are turned on with a very similar relay control. And sometimes they have a fault with a device that sends out that signal across the whole town, and then the lights don't come on, and they've got to go send a faultman, find the fault, fix it, and then hit the button again to send the signal to turn the lights on. So invariably that's what causes a fault with that control system.
Okay, yeah, no, because we noticed it had happened a few times, and it's quite eerie driving around town when it's pitch black everywhere, and it just makes you realise how reliant you are on having all that extra lighting when it's not there. So thanks for that explanation. And the other question I just had was in regard to the CCTV group. It says we're looking at meeting in May or June. So is that going to be June then?
Yes.
Yep, so that's coming up soon.
Yeah, so we just had another meeting this afternoon with Safer Cities. So they've prepared this requirements paper and strategy going forward. It's taken a little bit of time to get some of the detail of that right, but they're working on the last draft today, and then I'll be distributing that either Friday or early next week to the CCTV group. And so we'd go back to the technical working group first, which is police and Chris, to just from a technical perspective say, is this right? Has it covered everything we've talked about? If they say yes, then we'll bring it to that wider CCTV group for confirmation.
Oh, good. Look forward to seeing that. And then just on things that relate to town safety and things, I just wanted to inquire about funding for safer streets. There's funding through Waka Kotahi for safer streets, is that correct?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, well, 2 or 3 months back, they called for a national registration of interest for local authorities to put forward their interest in being part of that Streets for People, sort of tactical urbanism, similar to what happened in Cambridge. So we did put forward a registration of interest and said we would like to do some work outside the Kihikihi school and the Leamington Primary School. Waka Kotahi came back and said, look, I'm sorry, your registration is declined. And that's on the basis, I think, that we were obviously part of the program last year, and we did get a very large sum of money from them previously, and I suspect they're trying to encourage other local authorities who haven't done anything in this sphere to get started. So I wasn't too surprised, but I thought, hey, Waipa, we've shown we can deliver, and we do good projects and everything, that we were in with a chance. But clearly they've made up their mind about using the fund and sharing it around to other local authorities who haven't had a go. Okay.
If you had a specific project that you wanted to approach them for, is there still an opportunity to do that outside of that funding, like that urbanisation?
Yeah, I guess they will always look at what our overall program is. So we apply every 3 years for what they call low cost, low risk, which is funding for safety improvements that sort of fit their criteria. And so every 3 years we do, apply for millions of dollars of that funding. They always give us some money, but in this last round, we only got 50% of what we asked for. And that's just because of the demand across the whole country for that type of funding, and reflects the limitations that Waka Kotahi have in being able to fund everything that's asked for.
Okay.
But, for instance, outside the Leamington Primary School, in recent years, we built one of those gentle sort of speed tables and changed the footpaths, created a crossing point outside the school. We would have, did a bit of footpath work out along Whitaker Street in front of the Kihikihi Primary School just recently from that sort of funding. We do, promote and deliver projects using that funding, and we'll continue to do so.
No, cool. No, that's really helpful. And then I had one last question. From now owning a dog and walking around and paying far more attention to things going on, I'm still feeling very sorry for you about all of the damaged signage, still seeming to see quite a lot of that going on, unfortunately. But I was wondering who is responsible for trimming the grass along the footpaths. So, for example, my two key places are outside. There's a house on the corner of Factory Road and Tawhio Street, and so very close to the college. And there was quite a new footpath put in down there not that long ago. It's just about growing up. It's about this wide now. Right. So I just wondered what the rotation is for trimming. And again, from my house, or not actually, from the barnyard down along in front of where Sanders and to where that footpath ends, just down past the racecourse entranceway. That whole strip along there is starting to get quite, like you're losing about this much on either side of the footpath. And again, that's a relatively new footpath as well. And so I was just wondering, who's responsible for that and what the normal process is.
Yeah, good question. That comes up quite a bit. In residential areas, generally it's the adjacent property owner that maintains the frontage, mows the grass and keeps it tidy. And the vast majority of residents do that because they want their road frontage to look nice and tidy, and they just do it as they mow the rest of their lawns. there is occasionally there'll be places where, for whatever reason, the house is vacant, or you know, there's a tenant who doesn't own a lawnmower or something odd like that, and it will get out of hand. In situations like that, we might step in and do some mowing. But in places within our towns where it's not safe or possible for somebody to mow the grass, or there's no resident there, and there's pieces along the state highway, Haupai Road in Te Awamutu, where our contractor mows the grass. And that's a combined contract with transport and the parks. It's called the Rural sort of Open Spaces Contract. And so there had been a bit of disruption there with the contract termination and contractors changing. So some of those areas got quite long for a wee while, but I think it's pretty much all knocked back into shape now, isn't it, Brad? He's nodding his head. But places along Racecourse Road, I don't think that's on that schedule, and so it probably has been the residents, the racecourse or the adjacent landowner who's been mowing it in the past.
Or the racecourse mow on their side of the road, but there's not a footpath along there. But probably the messy part is along the front, you know, like where Sanders horse paddocks are, and they wouldn't mow along there anyway. I'm pretty sure it's usually council that would mow that, and then where I'm talking about on Factory Road is all along the front of the college,
right?
Down in front of their fields, and the house, particularly on the corner, is a rental property, and the grass was up about yay high, and someone has been in there with a weed eater, obviously, and given that a tune up. But as I say, the footpath is just about covered over. It's only about that wide through there. It's not very wide at all through in front of that house. It certainly is pretty useless.
Ones like that, we can certainly have a look and see what's going on and see what's in the maintenance contract and what's not. As I say, we'll, you know, if say, for instance, the college had been mowing along Factory Road, along their frontage, and they stopped for a while because it's been very, very wet and it's boggy and their mower's a bit heavy and they didn't want to go.
Yeah, no, this has been ongoing for, you know, like for it to grow over, this just, you know, like the grass has been mown, but it's not been cut back, you know, there's not been the little trimmy thing to go along and get it sorted out. So if I come across things like that, is it worth just taking a photo and putting it on Antino and flicking it through? I mean, I'm happy to do that, but it's...
because we will, you know, if the grass grows in and it's starting to obstruct the footpath, we will send our maintenance contractor in to cut it or spray the edges or clean it up where it's needed.
But just to let you know where it is. I mean, that's just a helpful thing, that if there are places around to encourage people to use Antino, I mean, it's not like you're having to do it all the time, but if it becomes a problem, we can do something about it.
No, it's perfect for that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, great. Happy to do that. I think that was me. It's those footpaths. And anyone else think of anything else?
Ryan, just how far have Unamere got with the waste, you know, curbside waste food collection? Have we got anything further since this report? Or
so there is a workshop coming up with councillors this month, I believe. Good. So a consultant with sort of a speciality in this type of waste disposal has been engaged, and they've prepared a bit of a facts and options sort of paper to discuss with councillors and get their views. So it's coming up shortly.
Excellent. It's just that we know that the government has actually put, or central government has put some timeframes on it, so we've got to operate on that. Thank you.
Yeah, I see Hamilton are doing it. I was at part of Hamilton the other day, and there's little food bins with little lids on all along the road. So that's quite good. Oh, thought of something else on the rubbish front. Getting good numbers of registrations for the household waste event. How's that looking?
The hazardous waste event, is it? Yep. So there has been some registrations. We hope there'll be more, because it's not as good as we'd hoped for just at the present time.
Okay, well, hopefully more people need to see it.
Just in relation to that, Brian, I've tried 3 times, and I've put in, it either says kilos or litres, and I put that in and identified the size of the containers and that, and then it just comes back and the information's incorrect.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I've sort of given up for a little while.
Right. Well, thank you for that feedback. I'll talk to Sally and we'll find out what's happening, because
Yeah,
it should be relatively, foolproof. I would hope that it will work.
Yeah, I actually, I've got some old paint and I weighed the paint because it said kilos or litres. So I put down the kilos, and when it came back and is incorrect, I put it down as litres, and I thought, well, can't be both ways, wrong. So
but it didn't accept either.
no,
right?
it hasn't accepted it all the way through.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Well, we'll do some testing and find out what's going on.
okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Cool, thanks for that, Richard. It's always helpful to know when there's technical problems. All right, if we've got no further questions, let's move Brian's report and John and Brian's reports, I should say. So can we please move that the Te Awamutu Community Board receive the quarterly property services report of John Miles, Manager Property Projects, and B, the transportation activity report of Brian Hudson, Manager of Transportation. Kane, and someone second, Richard. Those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Brian. Appreciate your time. And have a good night. Okay, so now we move to pages 44 to 46, which is our Treasury Report. And just get to there. Is there anything that anyone would like to raise in relation to the Treasury Report? Are we all happy with that? Kane, you're the bean counter. You got anything that's all good? All good. Yep. Okay. Let's move it then. Lou's already seconded it, but I needed a firsted at it. Okay, so Lou's moved that the Treasury Report of the Te Awamutu Community Board of Nada Milne Financial Accountant for the period ended 30th of April 2022 be received. So Lou's moved it, seconder. Kane, those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay. Right, so board members' reports from meetings attended on behalf of the Community Board. Has anyone been out visiting or been doing anything of interest? Not from Kane. Richard? Lou? Urban Miners?
Sorry, I've got to get onto this again. I had a little bit of a talk with Matt Johnson, and they are progressing Ashgrove Chatfield Farm, and they're actually looking at an engineering solution to that rather large erosion at the end of that drain. Okay, so they've had an engineer look at it, and they are going to remove most of the larger material, like the large gorse and the pampas grasses out of it, and they'll leave it fallow. They want to spray it for a year so that the regenerative gorse can be collected down. So he's had some discussions with local residents, and it's been a good positive outcome, I think, and so that was a big plus for us all.
Oh, cool.
We managed to get that through.
Yeah, well done. Thank
I've
you.
also been in consultation with the group as a stakeholder, but just with the cemeteries and what's happening within the cemetery. Te Awamutu Cemetery, if everyone wants to realise, is projected at this stage to be full on the current death rates and full body burials between 2028 and 2033.
Oh, that's not
in
far
that
away.
time frame. So we're looking at options, and yeah, well, I'm probably closer to you. But the scenario was looking at optimizing the area, and there's quite a number of options that have come up available. One of them is in the memorial side of it, is the removal perhaps of that hedge and putting a fence type option against that so that we get a little bit more area. That's the hedge by the memorial part of the cemetery, and a removal or a narrowing of the road that connects the car park to the main entrance, and limiting that, which is only really a little link road. But these are just proposed. These are all proposals. Nothing is in concrete. We will get back a draft plan over a period of time, but we're in the symbols, a limbo thing was whether we look at having a memorial cremation wall, utilising those, but there is an extra block of land at the back that will have to be delegated. That is at the rear, down by the service area. right
Oh,
next to
yeah.
the service area.
Mm,
Yeah.
maybe they should have been a bit quicker before all those houses went in and bought a little bit more land before the,
Yeah, well,
anyway, houses there now.
so that's all I've done.
And what about the urban miners? Where are we at
Oh,
with
okay.
that?
Urban miners, we had a meeting today, this afternoon, and the urban miners have actually changed their leadership as far as the Rotary from Te Awamutu is concerned. So that Murray Olsen has now stepped down and will be just an auxiliary member, and Chris Johnson will be our connection there as far as that's concerned. We will actually put and vote Chris Johnson as a member of Urban Miners Board. Okay, so he will sit on the actual board for Urban Miners. Interesting to note that the contributions from Te Awamutu actually relate to 50% of all of the collection. So we are a very significant part of Urban Miners.
Wow.
They're expanding our operations now into collecting not just only e-waste, but also decommissioned air conditioning units or.
Oh, yep, they've started on that now.
Yeah, they haven't started it. That one of their members has actually got a heat pump business which is able to decommission them for them. So, and they're quite valuable. So the options are there. I proposed that we're going to have another walkthrough like we had with the when we did it with the council that time.
Yep.
And for all of our community board members to go through and just see the options and what they're doing over there at Hazelnut Street. But they'd be very keen to do that. So they were optioning the Rotary Club and ourselves to do that. Probably have a dinner afterwards and have a talk. So I think it'll be a great option. So
yeah, no, definitely make sure I get there. I was meant to go last time, but something cropped up with the kids and I didn't make it. So no,
that's right. But I think that would be good to see that. And those that haven't been there could see how sophisticated it is and how they dismantle everything and recover everything. One of the most invaluable things, of course, is your good old microwaves, the magnetrons, and they are valuable, and people don't realise it.
Oh, I might have
how
one
many
of
those end up in landfills, and yet they're well worth recycling.
Oh, that's good to know. That's great. Thank you. That's awesome. I've just got a couple of things. So I attended a meeting with the chamber and some of the local retailers in regard to ram raids. And so I had hoped that we would have had a second meeting. It was scheduled for last Monday, but unfortunately it's now going to be on the 13th to discuss some of the ideas that have come forward to try and deter people from parking their cars in shop windows. But there's quite a proactive group. There's some great ideas coming through in the Chamber of Commerce are really supportive in getting behind and helping the retailers with that. So that's quite an exciting little group to be involved with. And I'm curious just to have a quick chat about whether that's something that you see community board should be involved with the safety of our CBD, and just sort of what thoughts that we have from a community board specific position that we can, what sort of support we might be able to offer them from our perspective. So I don't know if anyone's got any comments there.
We'll still keep using this, don't we? That's a positive. I did forget one thing that we're doing. We're having a stakeholders meeting for around ram raids next week at the. Oh yeah,
you're coming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're doing that. Well, I'm doing it as a stakeholder because we've had two of the RSA residences ram raided over the last.
Yep. No, I saw in the last, because you were meant to have come on Monday, weren't you?
Yeah, well, I did.
Oh, did you go? You hadn't got the message, did it?
Oh. I turned up and I'm walking around in an empty main street thinking,
where are they?
CRA.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think there were a few sick and things like that. So, yeah, Richard or Kane, you got any comments about, how anything that to add, do you think it's a good thing as we get involved?
I think with you and Lou going to it is shows our support for it.
Cool.
I don't think there's anything really that we can physically, financially do to stop it. it's up to whatever regulations are.
That's always a tricky
Which
one,
takes
isn't it?
it takes a bit of time.
Mm.
So,
There are some ideas coming through around street, what do you call it, landscaping, and street furniture that other places have done very successfully. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that we would be paying for it, but whether we endorse it when it comes, if we can, you know, support them by saying, look, bring it to us or something. But I just wanted to sort of check, see where you guys sat on that before I encouraged too much and found that I was on my own. Yeah, that was that. Just a very brief update on who are we, Te Awamutu. So Shane and I have been we met with the Rotary the other week and the Rosetown Lions, and I've spoken with the college, so their service committee are keen to support it. So I've just got to send the questionnaire links through to them, and I've got a couple of lovely young ladies that are happy to help get that out to the college kids, and to the next step is also to get it in front of iwi through the on the agenda of, I've gone and had a complete mental block on the, iwi tōpū. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to get that as the next part of the survey completed, but otherwise it's ticking along quite well. So I think that's pretty much me. I'm bound to have forgotten something, but yeah, so that's where we're at with that. So if there's nothing further on events or things that we've attended, actually, just while I'm in that space, I did send out an email asking about what we're doing in regard to the rural tour, because it was actually last weekend this year that we went, and I know we had talked about having trying to go to some local events rather than having our own rural tour. So I just wanted to check, are we still keen to do that? To see if there's any events on and go along to something that you know that community's already got on, and give that a go. Yep. Okay, cool. So what I've suggested is that Kane, seeing as you're the Kakapuku person, if you, I have sent an email and it's got some suggested halls. I was happy to do Pukia tour because I know Nigel Anderson quite well, and so I thought I'll just give Nigel a ring. But I've suggested some for you, and I've also asked Susan, and I see I did get an email back from Susan's with a couple of suggestions, and one of which is the local schools cross country. So whether that might be an idea, I'll forward that to everybody so you've got an idea of the date. The other idea was their AGM, which is in 2 days' time, so that's probably a little bit too short a notice. But yeah, if we'll aim for that anyway and see what we can do. Awesome. All right. Date of our next meeting. So I believe that there is a report there in regard to amendment to the schedule of meetings. So I just wanted to check. So we've got a few date changes here, Karen, have we?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, originally we had the date set out for at the end of last year for this year up to the time of the elections, but it did not include meetings in July. Council's business has increased a little bit, so they weren't going to meet during July either, but a couple of meetings have popped up. So I guess Joe's here is offering the Te Awamutu Community Board an opportunity to have a meeting in July if it so wishes. At this stage, what could have been on the agenda was the environment strategy and the public places bylaw. It sounds like they certainly haven't come across the council desk as yet, and it doesn't sound like they're going to anytime soon, so they probably won't pop up in July. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but...
Brad, are we due for a report from you before? much longer? Are we nearly up to one of yours or no?
There is one that's been drafted.
So that could quite likely come up as a July one if we were to have a July meeting.
Right.
Or is it August for you?
Potentially we'll go. I mean, that June.
Mm.
Yeah, so we'll do right now, I think, in June. We're going to SDM for this problem.
Okay.
Or September.
Oh yeah. Okay. So it's not okay.
Because this will come to you guys in September, I think. We go to the SDM.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So staff are proposing that we do include a meeting, but like I said to you before, that prior to the meeting, I mean, I'm not up for a meeting for meeting's sake, but if
Sorry, can I clarify?
Yep.
So do I hear it right? There's not really a lot going on potentially, or what?
Not at this stage, no. There is, sorry, I did miss a couple of quarterly reports. So district growth and civil defence emergency management would have come up if we'd had a July meeting. That would be included on the agenda, but at this stage, not a lot else.
So I thought the intention of that was to give staff a bit of a breather. So, do you know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
well, so
So if there's not a lot on, which is what I'm hearing, and the intention was to give staff a breather, then I don't know why we would have one.
the only downside that I can see is it will mean that if there's 2 quarterly reports to go into that meeting, that they will then be in the next meeting. So there will be a lot more in the August meeting. And the only other thing I can think of is it does prevent the public from attending and raising an issue or requesting funding. It means it's another month back before they could request any funding if they were wanting to do so. So it's just throwing that in there, but otherwise taking that into account, for or against.
What do you guys think?
Richard?
I think we've only got 3. That will only be 3 meetings for this term, for the end of our term. So I think if it's a suggestion from staff, they're obviously very keen to come and spend the evening with us. So yeah, I think in light of us not having with the election and not having anything in October, that we should go ahead with that meeting.
Yep, that sounds like.
No reason why it can't be half an hour.
Yeah, we don't have to be here for hours. That's exactly right. Yeah, no. So, Lou?
Yeah, I think that I agree with Richard, but I do think that there's a lot actually below the borderline at the moment that is actually operating. So we've got like that food waste collection that will have some reports and workshops that have been, Brian said that'll be this month. So, you know, just giving you the updated information, what we're thinking about could be valuable.
Yeah, I'll be going to the household.
There's a lot of submissions that we've put away.
Yeah.
And whether we get responses to those submissions could be quite good. You know, just Tiarawai with the water, for example. Yeah, Martin proposed a very one, just looking at some of the issues that we've got around the environmental submissions. There's some very important stuff in that. So I just feel that there is a likelihood, I think, concentrating it all into one in, you know, August, September, and then of course we've got the elections, and
yeah, and they're going to be on us.
You lose the focus a little.
No, thank you. All right, sounds like we're pretty comfortable with that. So let's move then that the Te Awamutu Community Board A receives a report amendment to schedule of meetings 2022 of Joe Greed, Manager Governance, and B adopts the inclusion of a meeting for Tuesday 12th of July 2022 commencing at 6 p.m. in the schedule of meetings 2022. So Richard to move it, second it, Lou, those in favour? Against? Carried. So we'll see you next month. Okay, so if there's nothing further that we've forgotten or missed, that means we close the meeting at 24 minutes past 7. Gosh, that's so early that I had to actually double look at that. So thank you very much to everyone who's joined us online and to Sharon for coming along and supporting our meeting in person. Much appreciated.